4 games to go, guys. 4 games to go in this regular season. The Marlins, they split the doubleheader with the Mets. Not maybe the way you would anticipate. It doesn't matter. 4 games to go. The Marlins, they have the destiny in their own hands. This is Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England. Welcome to Locked On Marlins. This is your daily Marlins podcast. I, of course, am your host, Peter Pratt. Yes, I am British. Doesn't matter. I'm still the host. And you can follow me at Miami Marlins _UK. If you are listening to the pod, of course, hit subscribe. It's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. There is a YouTube channel also, guys. Hit subscribe there. Also, that YouTube channel is called Locked On Marlins. It's the Thursday episode, Thursday the 28th of September. Yes, we're still in September. Yes, the dogs are back in, and the Marlins are in a playoff hunt. There's 4 games to go. 4 games to go, and they control their own destiny. Boy, oh boy, this has been a lot of fun. We're going to look back at yesterday's doubleheader and what preceded that. Equally looking ahead, the Loud Marlins fan is in his rightful spot on a Thursday episode. Chase, how we doing, brother?
We're back on Thursdays. My apology to those listening that just heard the dogs, but they're celebrating a late inning run last night.
No doubt.
Marlins got the win. We have the wild card, Pete.
We got it. We got it, mate. We've got it. Tons to get into, mate. But if the Marlins win out from now, the Cubs can do nothing apart from look back at Ronald Acuna raising the base to celebrate 70 bags from Acuna right in the middle of it, the 10th inning with the game on the line. Boy, oh boy, that has caused a stir. However, what is also causing a stir is our sponsor for the day, and it's Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Oh boy, Chase, let's start with the Bravos and the Cubs, then we'll really segue into some Marlins talk. But listen, the Braves, they're always the foes. They always hammer the Marlins. We've got this, interconnected issues associated all the way back to Jose Arena and all this stuff. But the Braves, in what is the biggest week of Marlins regular season baseball for many years, facing off against the Cubs, they have found a way to come back from 6-0 down in one of the games to win it, and also to come back again yesterday and walk the Cubs off in extras. Boy, oh boy, we can't, this is Locked On Braves now, right? I mean, stunning to see, but extremely timely that the Bravos just switch it back on again, right?
For the A, they're doing what they need to do, and that's win games. Yep. They're not fighting for anything anymore. They have the first seed locked in, but, they're helping their younger brother out. They're helping the Marlins. If you look at what we've done for them in the past, they're repaying the favor. When we beat the Mets, but we had to beat the Mets last year, years prior, the Phillies, etc. We're coming through for them. Thank you, Braves, for coming through for us.
No doubt about it. Love to see it. And that really did cause a stir. For those who haven't seen it, I'll just kind of describe to you what happened. But Ronald Acuna, the first 40-70 player ever. He stole his 70th bag. It was in the 10th inning. Ronnie, I think, had already knocked in, the tying run. So he tied the game. He then stole second. This is in the 10th inning. So the Braves have a guy on second. I think Ozzie Albies at the plate. The game then stops for Ronald Acuna to get the base out of the ground. That was hard. Raise the base in the air. There's a montage going on. The Cubs players, this game means so much to the Cubs. And they're having to watch this Ronald Acuna montage, mate. I mean, I can understand the Cubs' frustration, but equally, this is a historic season for Acuna. The Braves are at home. Frankly, the Braves can do what they want to celebrate Ronald Acuna, and that's just bad luck for the Cubs. But what an iconic moment that will be. And, I think the Cubs are overplaying this one a bit, right?
Yeah, definitely. Surprising to hear Boog Shambi on the call kind of complain about it, knowing how Boog is a South Florida guy and a former broadcaster for the Marlins and South Florida sports. It was weird hearing him complain, being in depth this deep into sports, into baseball, you got to be excited for those moments. Instead of celebrating it, being there, experiencing it, they complained about it. It does mean something, but you know what? If this was old baseball, 2022 baseball with no time pitching clock, it wouldn't have made a difference. You know that celebration would have happened.
Yeah.
You look at the home run celebrations, even Aaron Judge last year after the home run, the 61st home run, they celebrated after, even though it was away. These types of moments are historical. This is something that's never happened before.
Yeah.
You got to celebrate it. It's Acuna. You know how we feel about Ronald Acuna.
We love him.
But, you know, to experience this, to be alive for it, you can say, where were you on the day that this happened? Congrats to him. And you know what, Cubs? Deal with it. You would have celebrated if it was your guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go back, though, because the reality is the Cubs can talk about this, but the game was cooked by that point anyway, you know, in many ways. Albies were still walking them off. The Marlins equally have had some unlucky situations and circumstances themselves that they rightfully, in my opinion, have raised vocally that, you know, listen, this hasn't been right. The Marlins ended up being rained out in game 1 on Tuesday against the Mets. It wasn't even raining. And the reason they were rained out is because the grounds crew for the Mets decided to just leave the tarp off, knowing that some sort of tropical storm was coming. They just forgot to do it. And then they were like, oh, actually, we better get the tarp on. By the time they'd done that, they probably did a botched job of it. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it ended up the Marlins Mets were rained off when there was no rain actually coming down. Really, it was playable conditions, but the field was not playable because the Mets botched it. Normally, you'd go, well, okay, you know, you can handle that. Not this week, because the Marlins are down to the bare bones in the starting rotation. This meant that Braxton Garrett ended up going a day backwards, which means that if the Marlins really want to win and need to win, they're going to need Braxton Garrett, I think, to go on short rest on Sunday, away on the road in Pittsburgh, mate. So it's caused a big stir. Rightly so. What was your whole take on this situation around the Mets grounds crew and their handling of this whole situation?
In 2023, with radar, with storm predictions, with basically all the technology available, there is no reason why a Major League Baseball game should ever be canceled for on-field conditions. If it was raining, if it was storming, we would say, okay, that's baseball. But this wasn't baseball. And this put, at this time of the season, this put the Marlins in a horrible spot.
Yep.
Not only for a doubleheader, which they got through, we'll get into that, but now you have to pitch Braxton Garrett, who's over innings, pitched the most he's ever done, and he's done very well. You're putting him in a tough position to win on or to play on Sunday. But if you look at it from his standpoint, he's going to do it. He's a competitor. The Marlins organization did not really complain about this. Like probably behind the scenes, but publicly, Skip said, just got to deal with it. Just got to deal with it. It's more us fans being vocal. And the stuff I was hearing from Cubs fans about in 2018, where they had to fly to D.C. on their off day, play a game, and then fly back home for the remaining schedule against the Brewers for a division series. Well, that's baseball. That was a rain. That was a fixed day, your day off. They could have just extended the Marlins season an extra day if they needed it. They decided not to. We weathered the storm, quote unquote, there. And, you know, it put us in a rough position. We got through it, and you move on.
Got to move on. It is what it is, but it did cause a lot of feedback, negative feedback, and even Steve Cohen taking to Twitter to apologize to the Marlins organization and fan base that, listen, someone messed up. The guys, the grounds crew, they messed up. They were snoozing. They were caught snoozing. I don't know what they were doing, but it's meant that mistake by another organization impacts the Marlins right now in what they're doing in the next 6 games and 6 days, as well. So, you know, there are ramifications, but to Skip's point, just got to deal with it. And the reality is for the Marlins right now, they are dealing with a ton. It isn't just about Braxton Garrett. There is a ton happening right now. So we're going to talk about that. But equally, look at the doubleheader itself. They ended up splitting the doubleheader, which is fine. they split it in a way that I don't think we all anticipated, but that's fine too. So we're going to dig into that. But before we do that, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Gametime. Yes, sir. And you shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets to your next big event. No, Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And they've got last-minute ticket deals, killer last-minute ticket deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. Said that wrong. Anyway, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So all you have to do, it's pretty easy. You take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime and download that Gametime app. You create an account and use this code, and the code is LOCKEDONMLB, and that gets you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, guys, welcome back to Locked On Marlins on a Thursday. You are here with myself, Peter Pratt, and the Loud Marlins fan, and we are talking double headers. The Marlins end up splitting the doubleheader with the Mets. Game 1 did not go to plan. We had Braxton Garrett going. We knew Johnny Cueto was going in Game 2 as well, so all eyeballs were on. What can you get out of Brax? What length can you get? Because this bullpen is going to be tested. Chase, we didn't get that much length or quality out of Braxton Garrett. For me, it was pretty clear early that he didn't quite have it. Equally, when he left the mound, I think in the 4th inning, the camera kind of panned to him. He had a look on his face that I would describe as someone that was feeling under the weather. There was this kind of like I don't think he was feeling himself. I think maybe there's something kind of going on sideways, maybe just a bit of illness, sickness. I don't know. But Brax was definitely not himself. He tried his best and labored through it. But in the end, I think Skip, made the right call where it was almost like, I think we're going to have to save Brax, knowing that he might need to go on short rest, and equally starting to get in the mindset of this one's getting out of hand. We might have to punt this game a little bit as well. So just how was your assessment of Game 1, Brax's start, equally how Skip kind of managed it like in game, which I think he ended up making some really nice calls, but obviously the result didn't end up looking that nice at the end.
Brax was laboring through the game. You could see in the 1st inning. I mean, for the home run, the walks, etc. I spoke to Brax after the game. He didn't mention anything in regards to an illness. Not that I ever bring up baseball. It's weird the way I interact with players. I try not to bring up the outcomes. But he seemed to be in good spirits. And, I think he was more upset at himself that he didn't perform. But, you don't know if he warmed up prior to Monday's canceled or Tuesday's canceled game. You don't know what preparation he was in. Maybe he was tired from that. You don't know. So you saw it from the beginning. Just the overall assessment was he's going to get pulled early. And you think about the Sunday. So 77 pitches, I believe he was in. He gave up the 4 runs at that time, 4 or 6 runs. And you pull them, and the Marlins started to come back. They did what they always do. They start to come back late. The decision to put the rookie De Jesus in, and it's a rookie in a horrible spot. Your team's starting to come back, but they're still out by like 3 or 4 runs. It's just it's his 2nd outing in a position like that. Of course, in Philadelphia, when I was at the stadium, he was put in a 5-6 game. Philadelphia was leading. They then tacked on more runs, and he was just left out there but for the Wolves. Kind of the same situation, except, you didn't give the Marlins the chance to come back here. He ate up innings, and that is what it is. They kind of, let's say, waved the white flag at that point, saying, you know what, let's move on to the next game, get through this one. De Jesus is going to be kicked off the roster anyway. Leave him out. And it is what it is, right? You go for a split. It's hard to win a doubleheader, 2 games in a doubleheader on the road. You saw it in Dodger land a month ago. It's hard to win those games. Marlins are not a great road team as they've shown all season, and you're happy to get a split.
Yeah, for sure. The end outcome was completely fine, considering the situation and us walking into it. And equally in Game 2, you knew that you were facing Senga as well, which would be, on paper, a tough ask. I have no problem with the way Skip. I actually think Skip managed that Game 1 absolutely perfectly, to be honest with you, in terms of shortening Braxton Garrett when he saw, didn't quite have it, trailing in the game here. He then brought a couple of guys in. I think Okert came in and actually pitched well, turned to one of the others, but then again, ran a little bit more trouble. He realized, you know what, we need to save some of the high leverage bullpen arms for the second game in case we need them. So it was a fine balance for Skip, but I actually think he made all the right decisions. I've got no problem. Actually, I think being blown up in game one was probably beneficial to the Marlins. It actually helped Skip make decisions in an easier way and manage the pen. So 11-2 was what it was. Frankie Lindor and Pete Alonso just going bananas as well, both of them. So, you get into game two, though, mate, and John Birdie leading off, because John Birdie is leading off. We'll talk about Arias. We'll talk about Soler and some of the other guys that dinged after the next ad. But, John Birdie in the leadoff spot. John Birdie, boy, oh boy, I felt like he's had a quiet season by Birdie standards, to be honest with you. But I must say, recently, him and Hampson both, and Xavier Edwards as well in the very recent games, Birdie in particular, he's really stood up. Obviously, he's on like a home run tear right now as well. So, Birdie getting hot at exactly the right time as Arias is down, set the tone there. Jesus Sanchez equally piling in with a home run. We'll talk about that one. But let's start with Birdie, just what kind of impact he's having on this Marlins team just when they needed him.
I mean, he went for the cycle yesterday in the 2 games,
in the
right?
2 games, yeah, 2 games.
He only needed the home run in the first game. He was 3 for 4, I think, or 4 for 5, one of the two in the first game. Really, in 2 different spots in the lineup. I don't think he let off both. Soler let off the first game. He was in a different spot, and he came through. That's why you're signed him to the 2-year contract or 1 year with a club option, $3.5 million, I think it was, and he's earning it.
It's going to be a good option, that.
You got a good deal on him.
Yeah.
You want your players' next man up mentality. Wendell's been struggling. I think it says something that he didn't play in either game. They kept Birdie in. And, I don't know if you've ever taken BP, but, 10 at-bats in one day can get to you. It's not easy doing what he did. Lead off home run, set the tone against Senga. I want to just go back to this. That we played the Mets last week. Both pitchers, Braxton Garrett and Senga, both pitched in that series. It's kind of this reverse script. Brax was gotten to early in his game, and then we got to Senga early. In his. So it means something that you play so close together and you see the guy twice in a week. So you're happy that they made the adjustments there.
Yeah, for sure. Another, for me, I think it's a great point. You're looking at this game and thinking, right, Johnny Cueto's going. You've got Senga going. You need to get at Senga early. You need to put something on the board early just to give yourself a little bit of momentum. Otherwise, this game could kind of spiral quickly. So for me, critical that the Marlins got on the board in the first inning. Then obviously got Cueto going. And listen, Cueto, it's been a roller coaster season for Cueto in many, many ways. Recently, he's been reduced to effectively mop-up duty. Like the Marlins completely lost faith in Johnny Cueto. Now, with Yuri Perez down, with Sandy down, Trevor remains still down. They had to go with Cueto in this double. They just had no other choices, really, because they're kind of struggling with as well with these bullpen games, too. Cueto comes in 4 1/3 from Cueto, just 4 hits, 2 earned runs, just 1 walk as well. 2 home runs. It was a vintage Cueto performance, to be honest with you. But again, he gave just about enough. And as well, Skip Schumacher, it felt like he pulled him at just the right time, too. He was like, right, let's get him out of here. Let's get Puck in there. And Puck ends up giving 5 outs as well, getting 5 outs, which is so, so important. So you end up getting your 6 innings out of Cueto and Puck, I think for 2 runs, which huge dub as well, I think, in game 2. That, for me, was the critical part. What could Cueto give you? What could Puck piggyback off of Cueto to get you in a position to use your leverage arms and then wait for the offense to come back and deliver what they did? So huge from Cueto, though, mate, right?
Yeah, this is the guy you'd hoped you signed for the whole season who could give you the innings. He's at the tail end of his career. You're paying him $8-9 million for this purpose. There's nothing more meaningful than these games this week. I could see him coming out Sunday of the bullpen too, in a must-win game. He only went 4 innings. I can see him in Saturday coming out in the bullpen in high-leverage situations against the Central where he grew up against the Pirates. Great performance by him. You needed it. Puck when he's on, man, Puck is
He was on yesterday.
nasty.
Yeah.
And, the umps, we could talk about them. They didn't help the Marlins at all in either game, like the Braves or ours. And really, in this game, the Marlins got through it, and there were some bad pitch calls or bad calls on the pitches that Puck navigated through and Cueto navigated through. And you just got to say, you know what? Just keep swimming. Hats off to you guys.
Yeah, no doubt. There was some absolutely stinking calls, particularly what led to Berger being ejected immediately. Skip Schumacher then came out to kind of question that. You always know how it's going to go as soon as a manager is out. You know he's going to be tossed. He then is tossed. Just on that situation, mate, I must say it's so frustrating as fans, and I'm sure as players too, and everyone associated with it, right? The fact that the technology exists, the bases are juiced, season in some ways on the line, the umpire blows it, everyone knows he's blown it, and there's no way to review it. And I get it, you can't be reviewing if you don't have the technology in, but a review system, I think, is so easy to implement, would add a bit of drama, and actually in those massive spots like that one, the Marlins could go, hey, listen, we're going to use our challenge here. We think that was called incorrectly. They go to the thing, go, oh, actually, yeah, that was a ball, and, carry on. I can't remember if it was a full count or not, but it stuns me that baseball is still in this position where it's down to the human eye, and it's often a blocked view. It's like an impossible situation to be calling accurate balls and strikes. I do think that the team should have a way to challenge a number of them during the game, whether that's a maximum of 3, I don't know, but in a huge spot like that, it just feels wrong that the player knows it, the manager knows it, but the umpire's, made his decision. You question him and you're out the game too. It's like double whammy, crazy.
In a game or a day and age, I should say, with betting, where so much rides on these calls.
Yep.
The money that the players are making, the money that the fans are investing to come out to the ballpark, et cetera, it all goes down the line. It should be a perfect game. I understand not removing the element of the human element of it, but at the same time, you need to make these calls when they matter the most. You need to make sure you're as the umpire, not affecting the outcome of the game.
Yep.
Throwing out one of the Marlins' best hitters could have, luckily didn't, but could have equaled something really bad. And it didn't. They got through it. And you got to love Skip for always defending his players. He said it at the end of the game. He said, look, if Berger yelled at him, screamed at him, cursed at him, he said mother F and whatnot, I would understand him getting thrown out. But the frustration was just him throwing his helmet, didn't say anything to the ump. The ump tosses him. Skip says, he didn't curse at you. Like, let him vent. You made a bad call. He gets tossed. You hope it goes. You want some. I want the umpires to be held accountable.
That's the
point, whether it's today or by their union, by the MLB union, MLBPA union. Who's defending themselves against the umpires? Because this umpire should not be able to coach in the umpire in the postseason. That should be the penalty for making a blown call. But you won't see that happen. You'll see Angel, and this wasn't Angel Hernandez, but you'll see Angel Hernandez in the World Series causing games to go crazy there. Anyway,
if the technology's there, and there's ways, I think, to circumvent this. Your point is completely accurate in that there's no recourse on these poor calls to the umpires, but they need help. And actually, the team should be able to challenge things because you see it. I mean, I see it with Jase so many times. Jase, he's got a stunning eye, to be honest with you, and he knows. Really, and it's very expressive that he knows exactly what's in and what's not, blah blah blah. But it's something that, and to your point, from a betting perspective, as they start to really kind of leverage that across the US, and it's a huge part where these calls, that one in particular, bases juiced, and it's a blown call for a strikeout call, can really change the impact. Speaking of betting, we'll talk about our good friends over at FanDuel. Speaking of that, and you can snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Wow. Just place a $5 bet and you get $200 in bonus bets for any new customer. What an offer. Right. But if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options included. You've got spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So all you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, final segment here on Locked On Marlins on Thursday, the 28th of September. The loud Marlins fan is in the house. Chase, boy, oh boy, the Marlins are fully dinged up. It's so tough. I mean, Soler doesn't play in game 2. That's a poor indicator. Bell takes the worst sounding hit by pitch on a knee that I've ever heard. Arias is out there walking in flip-flops and some ankle brace. Looks like he can barely walk. Sandy's already down. Yuri's down. Trevor's down. Avi Garcia, he's down, but, we won't talk about that. Anyway, the Marlins offense has had to carry this team at times, which seems kind of crazy for me to say out loud, but is true. However, this Marlins offense, and we should include Jake Berger in this too with the quad issues, this team is hanging on for dear life. I'm not sure if Luis Arias is coming back this year. And frankly, I'm not sure if Jorge Soler is going to come back. That looks like a reoccurrence of his issues that he's been facing the last couple of weeks. The Marlins, I think, to get this done, are leaning into and going to need impact from Garrett Hampson, John Birdie, Xavier Edwards. Man, oh man, maybe they need big Dane Myers up here. I think if Soler needs to go on the aisle or something, then maybe Dane's up. But equally, need Jesus Sanchez, De La Cruz, those guys also to step up. Because those guys, I think, have benefited from the top of the order being a bit more meaty. And De La Cruz and Jesus Sanchez a bit further down the order. But man, oh man, this Marlins team, if they're going to get in and they need to win the next 4, well, if they win the next 4, they are in. But let's assume maybe 3 is enough. Even to win 3 games, man, oh man, they are going to do it the hard way with all of the depth tested. And the Marlins never had depth before. Again, this is going to be another testament to Kim Ang. If they come out of this season, manage to find ways to win, Skip Schumacher pressing all the right buttons, plus Kim Ang given the depth that was needed and necessary. Man, oh man, are they going to do it?
The Marlins are going to somehow pull us off and be magical. You hate to use this term reeling, right, for fish. Mm-hmm. But they're reeling right now as far as the injuries are concerned. Arise, first off, he shouldn't be walking in flip-flops with a hurt ankle.
No.
You need to get that tight and pressure on it to hold down the swelling. And sandals, at least even he was wearing thong sandals. Those give you no support, and you're walking around in an air cast with like, come on, man, like you got to be better on wet dirt that's already ruined. You don't know if you're going to step on a rock or something. That's just crazy to me to see that, and that they're not keeping him tight there. Soler couldn't play in game 2 because of tightness in his side. If you looked at that at bat where he swung and went down after he swung with no contact, it wasn't like a foul ball or anything. He got right back up, but you could tell something was wrong there. Even when he was in the field, he wouldn't dive for that one fly ball to right field.
Yep.
As he was in right in the first game. You go down that lineup into Berger. You hope he's okay. Doesn't seem like an issue there. Got a little bit extra rest yesterday.
Yeah.
Bell going down would be, if Bell and Soler are down, I don't know where that power is going to come from. No. May even consider bringing up Troy Johnson if you can, because you need a first baseman if Bell is out. And let's see if at the toughest, most pressured time in a season, if this rookie comes up and does something, that's only going to help the team. Imagine that. Everybody's been calling for this guy all season. He comes up. You got Dane Myers if needed. If Soler's down, you hope he gets out of the slump that he was in. I think he got a few hits in the limited opportunities he got to play when he was just up here. But you look at last year's team versus this year's team as far as depth is concerned, and you feel a little bit more comfortable by the way these rookies have performed in the situations they've been given, as opposed to the J.J. Bledays of the world. I hate to say it, but even Peyton Burdick, beginning of the season and end of last season, just didn't perform well in the majors. I think the Marlins could get through it, but you're going into a playoffs versus the Phillies, or Milwaukee, and you're going to have to score runs. You just hope you're offensive there. Your question about Arise, will he be back this season? I could see him coming back for a Saturday or Sunday, but you need him for the postseason. So if you're a game up or somehow the Braves win, we win tonight, you're a game up, which is really 2 games because you have the tiebreaker.
Yep.
You may let him rest, and that's okay if you can let him rest. It is crazy, right? Going into this season, let me finish with this. Going into this season, Pete, our whole thing was we have the depth in pitching. We have the best pitching staff. We have the Cy Young winner. You don't want to face this pitching staff come the playoffs.
I know.
Well, the whole pitching staff is injured for the most part. You have 3 guys left who are throwing more innings than they ever have. Cueto's an iffy. I don't even consider him a starter in this. Like Edward Cabrera is barely a starter. So you've got 2 bona fide pitchers, 2.5 bona fide pitchers here, 3 if you include Cueto all totaled. But you're going in really into this postseason and you're relying on guys who have never been there. You're happy with the rise, but how great would it have been to have Pablo healthy in this situation? You wish him the best in the Minnesota representing in the playoffs here. So it's crazy the situation you're in. If you look at the Marlins versus all the other teams that we're playing against, we're the most injured. We're the most beat up. But that just makes it so much sweeter when Fish Gone Wild happens this weekend.
Let's go. Listen, they've got it. It's in their own hands. You win out, you're in. It doesn't matter what the Cubs do. And listen, we're cheering on the Bravos as well, clearly, this evening. We're hoping the Bravos can put the sweep down on the Cubs, which would be huge to your point. If then the Marlins can win as well this evening, they go a game up, but really 2 with the tiebreaker with the final series to come. Cubs obviously have a nice run in circumstance anyway, because the Brewers will have already clinched there. There's nothing for the Brewers to play, and so they will be resting particularly all their starters from a pitching perspective and lining everyone up. So, some of the offense guys will like to stay in and keep things going. But pitching wise, maybe less so. Go on, buddy.
I just want to throw this out there for us. Something to celebrate, Pete, that wasn't mentioned yet. Marlins are going to finish over 500 in a regular season for the first time. No matter what happens the rest of it, we are already going to finish over 500 for the first time with 82 wins since 2009. That can't go unmentioned here. It's something to celebrate no matter how the season ends, whether in the playoffs or before the playoffs. I think in the playoffs it will. But where we win the World Series, no matter what happens, what an accomplishment. What a great job by this front office, adding at the deadline. It was a lot of complaining in January coming out of the December winter meetings when we weren't signing anybody. We were the last to make moves. We were the last to make moves at the deadlines, but everything was thought of. The only thing we missed at the deadline was an additional pitcher, which we could have got if the Guardians didn't decide to go for it when they were 5 games out. Regardless, congratulations to the players. If you're listening, thank you for the season, to the front office, to the players, everyone from the staff at the ballpark and whatnot. It's really appreciated, and we hope we get to continue it.
Great sentiment. You're right to call out the Marlins will be above 500. What I must say, let's finish here. Just got one final sentence or 2, and then we'll wrap up because we're slightly over time. But I have no doubt in my mind, 0 doubt, that the Marlins are making this postseason. It's just, I've watched it all year. I've seen what's gone on. I've seen how these games have been won. It's written. The Marlins are making it. And it's going to be the Marlins against the Brewers. And anything can happen, baby. But the Marlins are going to make it. And it's been a stunning season, to your point. A stunning season. And they fully deserve it. And they're going to limp into it. They're going to limp into the postseason. But they fully deserve it. And everyone has played their part. Guys, that's been Locked On Marlins for Thursday, the 28th of September. Thanks to the Loud Marlins fan for hopping on. Guys, there's 4 games to go. Just 4 games to go. And Jesus Luzardo gets the ball tonight. The Marlins looking to win the series against the Mets. This game, I've said this 95 times this year, but this game feels huge. If the Marlins can win this game, this series, head into Pittsburgh. And I think if they win that series in Pittsburgh, I don't think they'll need to sweep them. I think if they win tonight, they can then just win the series in Pittsburgh on the road against a team that's already cooked. Then this 2023 Marlins will be making the postseason. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow, guys.